Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We are about to start round number 2 of week 6 of the PSS 5. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined in the booth not by Michael Arnold, as my graphic shows, but by Will Hirst. How's it going, Will?
Emotionally recovering, but I'm
Yes.
okay.
Yes, so we are going to be covering the match between Álvaro, Galindo, and Tom Metelsky. I guess I do want to take this quick opportunity. We didn't talk about the standings as of last week for our first match, but I'm going to bring up that graphic. And let's look at that real quick. So, this is before the match that was just played. We had Tom and Jared are tied with a 4-1 record for first, and then Lanny is in third with 3-2, and then there are lots of 2 and 3s. Will, Michael, Rich, and Alvaro. I guess we did just see a little bit of change as Will, you had fallen to Rich, but and then Jeff in eighth with 1-4. And according to Lanny's math, I don't know if the outcome of that match that just happened changes what Lanny predicted, but he said that Jeff is not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So
So crazy.
so we could see a lot of weird things happen and anyone make that top 4 cut. And so this is just kind of a glimpse of where we're at as of the end of last week, and we'll see where we progress throughout the night. But I'll bring up the decks that our players have available. We have Álvaro. He has brought the Mono Blue Stifle Knot, the Blue Red Tinker, and the Mono Red Panza. He has used his other 2 decks. He is now going to be playing the Blue Red Tinker list tonight, while Tom has the Blue White Stifle Knot, Blue White Landstill, and the Rock, while Tom is going to be playing Blue White Landstill. So Álvaro on Blue Red Tinker, Tom on Blue White Landstill. Do you have any experience with either of these decks or this matchup in particular, Will?
I truly don't. But anytime I think prisony deck versus straight up control deck, I feel like, all things considered, the prisony deck is in a good spot. Because in theory they're designed to prey on slower decks. But Annulla is a hell of a card out of the sideboard, so I don't know. I got nothing. I want a great match.
All right, so I have the Blue Red Tinker list up, and one of the cards that's pretty key in a lot of matchups is the Goblin Welder. And so if the Goblin Welder still stays in play, and then counter magic is a lot less effective against this Tinker deck, which I would say in general is pretty good because there are a limited number of threats. I mean, like a card like Tangle Wire is good if you're able to follow it up with a threat, but if the time expires and nothing happens, then you've just only bought some time. And then there are cards just like Chromatic Spheres and the Mind Stones and the Thran Dynamos that, I mean, I'm not saying that they're bad cards, but they're not going to kill your opponent. So if the control deck is able to contain the threats, then that's a path to victory. But the Goblin Welder definitely throws a wrench in that plan because if you're countering that one Triskelion or whatever, and there's a Goblin Welder in play, okay, I'll switch my Chromatic Sphere for a Triskelion and I'll attack or whatnot. So I can see that coming into play, though obviously there is spot removal for the Landstill deck. So we'll see how this plays out. I'll bring up Tom's list real quick. Probably something that most people are familiar. I will note there are a couple copies of Phyrexian Furnace in the main, and I was singing the praise of Goblin Welder, and if that were to come down early, that can make things complicated for Alvaro, so that might come into play. But lots of card draw, counter magic, and removal. That's the classic Landstill archetype, so a classic blue-white control. So I believe Tom has won the die roll, and so he will be on the play. But let's jump down to the match. Will, if you want to let our players know that they can begin, we're going to be starting things off. So,
Alrighty.
I've still got a Pendril Drake up on my screen for the last
card
match.
ever. It's the best card ever.
Is it better than the Kenai Aven?
It's a Drake, so sure.
Okay.
We don't got time for the birds around here. All right, so Tom leading off with an island. What are you going to do? Álvaro passing the turn.
Yeah, so one of the cards I did kind of mention just like Tangle Wire in general, but because the Landstill deck doesn't really put that many permanents into play early, that could be a way for Álvaro to resolve a threat because he's keeping Tom's mana tied up because of the Tanglewire trigger.
Agree. So blue mana getting tapped by Rashad and Port. Port, a very nice way, obviously, of controlling a Mishra's Factory when it comes down to it. Tom opting to get aggressive and just going with that factory attack.
Yeah, it's not necessarily something I think that Álvaro is unhappy to see because Tom's tapped out on blue mana because of the port. I mean, I guess the white mana, he probably doesn't fear that much, but now he kind of knows, all right, shields are down. I'm going to be able to do what I want this turn. Mm-hmm. He's going to start with a Thran Dynamo and then follow it up with a Tanglewire. So a pretty good sequence.
Yeah, that's... I mean, I can see getting the attack in there if your white mana was the only mana available on that turn because you're really not going to do anything. I doubt he makes that play. Obviously, if he draws probably an island of any sorts. Mm-hmm. But there's no question now that Tanglewire controlling what's being tapped or untapped is going to be at least detrimental a couple turns to Tom.
Yep.
And Dynamo pushing him over the top with mana is going to be really good.
So during the upkeep, Tom is going to have to tap his permanent, so he'll use this opportunity to cast Impulse and then tap his remaining planes. And he does at least sneak a Phyrexian Furnace, which is nice in multiple ways that, like, it does do a good job of combating, like, a Goblin Welder if it were to come down. But also, right now, it's just a permanent to tap to Tanglewire.
Exactly. So, leaving one mana open plus the Thran Dynamo for Álvaro. Shields are down here for Tom. See what our play is. City of Traders has died for the Gemstone Mine. 5 mana. Down 3. Or down 2. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of copies of Winter Orb in the main for Álvaro, but yeah, with the combination of Tanglewire, but just having, like, Álvaro has Thran Dynamo plus Rishton Port.
Yeah.
Not a lot of even without the Tanglewire at this point, not a lot of Tom's lands are going to be untapping, because Álvaro will be able to untap the Thran Dynamos for access to mana, and then always have the port to keep at bay whatever Tom untaps.
So removing a City of Traders. No huge threat on the board right now, so Tom can try and start making just land drop as best he can. It is going to be really tough.
I would say that the Dust Bowl that Tom had would be a good answer to the port if it weren't for the Winter Orb. Since Tom is going to have a hard time getting that 4 mana and a Dust Bowl activation because of the Winter Orb.
I would agree. So port is always going to be that land that is. He did not untap. Oh, he has a second port. Okay. What land did he untap, or did he just tap down the land and the Tanglewire itself, which would make sense?
Yeah, it looks like that's what it was, yeah.
Okay. Winter Orb just really something hard to contend with in this position. It's just going to be so hard to build up mana to really move beyond it. Tom, though, an amazing player, so we'll be able to, I'm assuming, find it if need be and work his way towards it.
So at this point, Álvaro has a lot of time. So he's going to look to... I mean, the Goblin Welder is not particularly effective because of the Phyrexian Furnace that's still in play. Plus there's... I mean, I guess the Tanglewire will go to the graveyard, but I don't think he'll be able to have it in time. But beyond that, his ways of winning are... let me bring up his list. So I know he has a Karn. There is... I mean, like, Tinker is a card that would be really good for him to, like, translate okay, I'm gonna exchange one of my artifacts for something more of a threat. Let's see. The Phyrexian processor is fine. Mishra's Helix is kind of like doubling down on that mana denial plan. Smokestack is another card that he could get. And Karn and Masticore, Phyrexian Devourer, or Triskelion, I think are more of the threats that he would be looking to play. And looks like Karn is the one that he has drawn.
Yeah, Karn, this is probably the most dangerous spot for this to happen, with the ability of having a swords to hit Karn. But with that passing now, in theory, he can just go on the offensive in some way. Karn turns things into artifacts, right?
Yes, non-creature artifacts in. How has Álvaro taken damage?
He has a Shivan Reef.
Yeah, but he hasn't cast
But
any.
he hasn't cast a red spell.
I'm confused with the life totals.
Maybe the accidental one got dinged.
I don't know. Well,
So it looks like he is activating a Tangle Wire for an attack and a Thran.
oh, okay. I had him backwards. Okay, the factory attacked one time, and then.
That's right. He did get in here too.
Tom was at 17. Okay.
So
Surgical extraction. Well, a noble effort. Nope. That one was not cast. I know.
here comes a sword.
Yeah, but basically, if this Karn goes unanswered, it is a very fast clock. Looks like
is. Be 3, 7, 11 coming in.
Yeah.
Sounds like he has tap mana to do things. Tom is going to respond.
Well, I guess like if you only had 2, no, I guess it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, you tap the Thran Dynamo. The most he could do right here is swords the Karn, but I mean, I think Álvaro still has 2 floating to at least get in for 7.
Yeah. All right.
So down to 6 for Tom. Oh, it was a port on planes? Okay. I thought he had tapped the port to do something else, so fair enough.
All right.
Okay. There it is.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about that, like the threat light of Álvaro might be problematic against Tom, but that Tangle Wire plus Winter Orb plus Mistress Factory plus Thran Dynamo just lined up and just destroyed that Landstill deck. So yeah, that was I think is exactly how Álvaro wants like a game to go against a slow strategy. But it looks like Tom has a lot of cards. It looks like he's either boarding out or bringing in, or maybe both. Let's take a look at their sideboards and try and get an idea how they're sideboarding. So I do have the Landstill list up. 3 copies of Annul, 1 copy of Chain of Vapor, 2 copies of Blue Elemental Blast, 1 Hydroblast, 1 Circular Protection Red, 4 Meddling Mage, 1 Arcane Laboratory, 1 Seal of Cleansing, and 1 Wrath of God. So Annuls definitely are appealing. Would you want Meddling Mage in this matchup?
I think you would. Reason being is, number one, it can shut off a key piece for Álvaro. Secondly,
are you naming Tinker? What do you usually? What do you think you're naming?
Tinker. You could name Thran Dynamo, but I think honestly the biggest thing is it is a threat that can put pressure on Álvaro as well.
Okay.
Early if you can get it under there. And Alvaro's not moving very quickly. It's another thing you can tap to a Tangle Wire. I like Meddling Mage in there to just even provide another threat along with the Annuls, Seal of Cleansing. Because what comes out? So 2 Wrath of Gods come out. Do you keep in the Humility in this matchup just for Welder, or is that too narrow?
No, I think it's a pretty good answer to Welder, and I mean it answers like all of the threats I think of Álvaro. So and it's very problematic I think to remove. smokestack is the only way to get rid of it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess I'm not exactly sure unless you're cutting standstills or decrees, but I definitely don't think you want
I
to
mean,
cut decree.
no, I
Uh,
don't think so. Maybe I mean the annuls are definitely coming in. I would love to find a way to get meddling mages in there. Does he have enough to cut for it? I don't know. In his opinion, maybe, maybe not. I think it's an added piece that pressures things, but annuls are definitely coming in for at least the two wraths and
and
maybe a swords.
yeah, I have to imagine
Be my
seal
assumption.
cleansing is probably better than a
Seal
lot of
as
those cards.
well.
So let's take a look at Alvaro's list. So 3 chill, 1 Tormod's Crypt, 3 Pyroclasm, 2 Sphere Resistance, 3 Defense Grid, and 3 Shattering Pulse. So definitely the Defense Grid, and then I think you want the Sphere Resistance against the Landstill list.
I
Uh,
think you're correct.
I don't know
No,
what cards I do.
no
So in
blasts.
Snaring Bridge, I would take out. Uh, what other cards? I'm gonna bring up the
Um,
text list for my reference. Make it easier.
Tormod's Crypt, you said right.
Yeah, I would take out the Torment Script because Álvaro has one of those in the main.
Mhm.
Um,
Snaring Bridge.
you might just.
Uh,
I'm like,
Masticore, maybe?
yeah,
Or
I
is that
could.
just good enough for decrees?
I I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it depends on. It's probably worse than it's worse than the cards you're bringing in. I think, but
Okay.
I don't know. It seems like a lot of actually Alvaro's cards seem pretty good in this matchup. I'm not exactly sure
Mm-hmm.
how he wants to board. Um,
It's at least ensnaring and Tormods for Sphere of Resistance. Chromatic Sphere is kind of a. I don't know, I mean, it's kind of it's okay. It draws you a card, but it's not like advancing your mana any, and you're gonna have enough time to find your right colored mana.
well, I mean,
So I could see maybe.
if you have a Goblin Welder in play, like the Chromatic Sphere can do a lot of work. You can just cycle through your
Sure.
deck. But I guess you're kind of losing a different artifact every time you do that, so maybe that's not the most efficient use. If you want to, it looks like they were just messaging. If you want to let them know that they can start whenever.
Yep, I got it.
I'll reset the life totals. I'll give a game win to Álvaro. Yeah, so I don't know if he likes his control matchup that much, or if he feels like that was like a really standout game where everything happened. But this is like a sequence where it's just like this could be really
Ooh,
problematic for Tom. Just casting a sphere
and
resistance after Tom has played a coastal tower.
yeah, that's I mean, that's a great start for Alvaro.
And if we see like a card like defense grid come down or something, like now it's just there's just so many like hands that I can just envision Tom having that are just super problematic. All right, there's a Mind Stone. So a painful way to cast a Mind Stone, but
But worthwhile, most likely. I don't think damage is going to be
sure,
the
yeah, yeah.
huge thing
And plus,
at
like
the moment.
if Alvaro's trying to get any of his bigger cards, they all cost 1 extra because of the sphere. So, all right, well, Tom does have a sphere or seal cleansing, so if he needs to, he can pop that when he wants to get rid of a pesky artifact. He's gonna let Alvaro untap, so he's probably not going for the Mind Stone in that case. That makes sense. I think the sphere is the much more problematic card.
Exactly. And he definitely, if he's going to pop the sphere, he's going to do it on his turn,
Yep.
so Alvaro does not get any sort of advantages from it. Looks like we're going down to 10.
Or a Thran Dynamo. Well, I mean that's a good one to. If that one stays in play, then now you have a lot of colorless mana for not as much pain.
Okay, returning there. There you go.
The Croesus' Catacomb, picking up an Ancient
Mm-hmm.
Tomb, so another way to mitigate some of the damage that Alvaro would deal to himself.
And a Tangle Wire. I mean, that is something that will have to be dealt with.
Well, the thing is, like, if Tom is not gonna cast anything meaningful on this next turn, anyways, you might as well just leave it because at least it hinders Álvaro a bit. But maybe Tom's going for. I mean, what would he be going for in this spot?
I think he maybe just wants mana open. Oh, he has the second seal. There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Double seal from Tom. An excellent, excellent way to go here.
Yeah, but I still like. I mean, like, I still like Álvaro's position here.
I mean, who wouldn't with all the mana he has and the tools? It's not very often that the blue-white decks get outclassed on mana. But it's happening here.
I guess if Tom's able to get rid of the sphere, which obviously is because of the seal cleansing, and Álvaro doesn't really have any other haymakers in play, and he doesn't have a disruptive piece. He doesn't have a Rishon Port or another Tangle Wire. Then that would turn on Tom's counter magic. So maybe just getting rid of the sphere, and then maybe Tom has a lot of play because Álvaro only has 2 cards in hand. So maybe this is not as bad as a spot for Tom as maybe I had first thought.
Yeah, it's Álvaro's deck is very powerful, but the amount of gas you can get from coming out strong is limited if 1 or 2 of your things are dealt with. Álvaro with a couple of Mind Stones, he has the mana, especially if the sphere goes away, to kind of crack and draw, which isn't a horrible thing to get 2 fresh cards.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those are cashed in. And that's what we're seeing. Okay, a mana floating still. It's the City of Traders tap for 2. One of the Mind Stones will be cycled, and Álvaro has a new card. And if he doesn't find anything, I guess he has that Ancient Tomb. I think is also still in his hand. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's gonna. Yeah. Oh no, this one's getting tapped for mana, I think.
All right, so 5. Tinkering. Okay.
This is a good spot to cast Tinker since Tom is down. Though with a Seal Cleansing in play, what is the most? Like, unless you're just getting another sphere. What threat would you be getting with the Seal Cleansing in play?
Is it maybe my thought maybe would be, without knowing that, is getting a threat that Tom has to answer with the Seal Cleansing to maybe save your sphere of resistance. Like making you have to choose between. I don't know if it's good or not. I just don't think I know of an artifact, because even if you went even if you had the mana to somehow go Phyrexian Dreadnought into Altar.
The Devourer, yeah. It looks like he's going to go for another sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the most problematic card other than another sphere would be. I could maybe Tangle Wire, but the creature threats, I mean, Devourer, Triskelion, Masticore, Karn. I don't know which or any of those are still in the deck, but I don't know if any of those would merit a response from Tom. It also would open up the opportunity that if Tom did have a Swords of Plowshares, he'd be able to answer that threat with the swords and then use the seal on the sphere resistance. So I do like Álvaro getting a second sphere.
Oh, I mean, the sphere is good for casting spells, but if they're in a state of just draw goes, that has to favor Tom even without counter magic because of manlands, cycling a decree which sphere does not interact with. So I don't think Álvaro can give him all that much time, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of Tom's plays really clunky. Like the impulses or the factor fictions get super clunky when they cost 2 extra mana. That one costs 4. That one should not cost 3, right?
Yeah, 1 second.
So Tom is going to name Tinker with the Meddling Mage. Okay. He's going to use an extra mana for that Meddling Mage. So that does mean that Álvaro can cast whatever he wants, since there's going to be no spell that Tom is going to be able to play. I guess that probably wouldn't be very different. I guess it could have been different if there was just one sphere. But he's going to resolve a defense grid. So kind of like doubling down on the effect that he already had. So the spells that Álvaro is going to play are very likely to resolve. But he's going to need...
How much does the event can Fade Across? It's 2 mana, right?
3 you have to pay.
So he has to pay 1 more mana? Because he tapped us.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you meant like the additional tax. It costs 2 to...
It does cost 2. Okay, I thought it cost 3. I was like, now I'm questioning everything.
No, I was answering. I interpreted your question wrong.
Gotcha.
But with Álvaro taking a bunch of damage from the Ancient Tombs, he's only at 8 life, and this Meddling Mage does not have to do a lot of work.
That is true. And he doesn't have a lot of answers to it in the deck unless he brought in like a Pyroclasm.
I can't imagine I can't imagine he brought in a card like Pyroclasm.
You never know. Crazy scientists out here, I tell you.
That's true.
All right. Swinging in with the Meddling Mage.
Yeah, you talked about those Meddling Mages, but I guess I was anticipating it having to do a lot more work than just 4 swings. So,
I mean, we'll call it the split 50-50. Your reasoning was sound. Mine works. Álvaro has Ancient Tombs. What are you going to do?
Yeah. All right, Tom has 6 mana in play, so that means he has access to a 4 mana spell. The best thing he could do here... I mean, it's probably just casting another Meddling Mage, if I'm honest. Other key cards that'd be good... Oh, I guess Cycling Decree is very good against the spheres. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, I got a bunch of lands in my hand. I'm gonna be dead to what you do. So,
all right. So on to game 3 with Álvaro on the play. Ooh, hiccups.
Yeah, I'll jump back to the decks. We'll look at Álvaro's list, and yeah, I mean, we saw the spheres, we saw the defense grids. I don't think anything else is coming in. And from Tom's perspective, we did see the Meddling Mage. We didn't see the annuls, but we had to assume. And then we did see the second Seal Cleansing. So,
there would be no argument for Pyroclasm, right? Not even 1 or 2 copies. I mean,
maybe if you're really expecting to catch your opponent off guard, but I feel like if you're trying to react to what your opponent's doing in that space, you're kind of already losing. But maybe not. I mean, like if Álvaro were to have a Pyroclasm in that spot, it would have looked pretty good, but I don't know. It would not be something that I would think to do if I were in Álvaro's position, but maybe it's a way to combat the Meddling Mages. I can almost assuredly say that Tom is not going to name Pyroclasm with his Meddling Mage. So
I can't imagine that he would. I mean, I think though, now that you have seen Meddling Mages, that is a plan. It maybe adds more credence, especially if you're on Ancient Tombing yourself to oblivion. If that happens, I don't know. It's an interesting.
Yeah, I guess I would not. I can see someone bringing in a Pyroclasm. Álvaro sporting the Karn playmat, while Tom has the Coastal Tower, so they're very on theme with the decks that they're playing tonight. Given that both those cards are in the respective players' decks. So.
Exactly. Should be a good game, though. Both games had interactive pieces in it.
Yeah, I guess the difference is Álvaro did a good job of the prison element of his deck in both games. It's just when does the threat come down? I guess I will say the first game, the combination of Tanglewire, Winter Orb, and Rishton Port with like a card like Tanglewire was a much better prison than the Sphere Resistance. Not that I would
Mm-hmm.
be unhappy to resolve a sphere really early, but yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of powerful cards in Alvaro's deck in this matchup. A lot of cards that like Tom does not want to see.
I agree. All right, so it looks like we have had at least one mulligan apiece.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, who do you think mulligans better? I feel like
Alvaro, with cards like Ancient Tomb and City of Traders, and the
yeah.
ability like just to power out like a really important card. I know if comparing to the Mud decks, like I've played Mud a lot more than the blue red lists, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a deck that you have to mulligan aggressively, and a lot of times is for those sequence. Like the difference between casting a turn one sphere and turn two in some matchups are just night and day. And with a card like
Mm-hmm.
Annul available to Tom, you Alvaro would love to be able to resolve one of those like defense grids, sphere
Mm.
resistance on turn one.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, so players are gonna get going here. It looks like.
It looks like Tom is not
Tom's
happy
gonna
with
go
his next hand, so he'll be going at least to 5.
ahead. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, the unfortunate part of this is if the deck that wants the resources, if it's down that far, makes locks even more hard to break out of,
Sure.
just because you don't have the resources to even really try and fight the game at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alvaro will put one card at the bottom. Looks like he's happy with his 6. So Tom's going to try and find a 5-card hand that is good enough to fight the blue-red Tinker list.
Mulligans are one of the great equalizers, I suppose.
Looks like Tom is settled on his hand. He's just deciding what his last card to put on the bottom. And then we'll kick things off for game number 3 of this match 2.
Should be a fun one.
Who do you think has the advantage here, given that, I mean, Alvaro's on the play with an extra card.
I feel like I agree with you. Álvaro has to be there. If he gets off to like turn one and he like soul land into defense grid or something, well, we got a chromatic sphere. So, not worst case scenario. Tower.
All right,
Coastal
well,
Tower from town.
yeah, Alvaro doesn't have to fear the annul. That would be the one mana play that might make things difficult for him. So even if he doesn't have a turbocharged sphere or defense grid, if it came out this turn, which looks like it's not, Alvaro's just going to pass his turn after playing an Ancient Tomb.
Yep.
Yeah, so this
having
I would say this game is the most different than comparing game 1 and game 2, because I think Alvaro had a pretty similar plan both game 1 and 2 where he had prison elements early. This game he does not, so we'll see if that changes how the game plays out because of it.
I agree. Yeah, Tom able to make his land drops, not missing land drops, which is very important. Álvaro with a bunch of mana and nothing to do with it quite yet, or at least nothing he wants to do. Tapping 4 mana, taking 2.
Looks like we're
Aiming
casting
for
a Tangle Wire. So if this comes down, that will give Alvaro a good amount of time against the permission of Tom.
Mm-hmm.
But given Tom's reaction, I guess he could just be impulsing, or he's going to counter it.
I mean, impulse would be the less effective of the two, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's much more likely that things get countered here.
Yep, looks like.
Which is a Mad League. Oh.
Ooh, so Alvaro had 1 mana floating,
He
If
left
he,
himself open to the mana leak.
yeah, if he would have played that Catacombs prior to casting Tanglewire, he would have had the option to play Mana Leak. So I wonder if that means that he's going to be using the rest of this mana right now.
Yeah,
Or 3
looks like
mana.
it.
Is this a Tinker? Yes.
There it is.
All right.
Okay,
So
nice
the
play.
Tanglewire draws out the Mana Leak. That gives Álvaro the green light to cast the Tinker. So what are we
I
getting
thought he
here?
had been a land drop that turn, so I wasn't even thinking about it. So what are we tinkering for here?
Winter Orb.
Winter Orb.
Okay. I guess the benefit for Tom is that Álvaro is tapped out. He doesn't have any mana rocks in play, and there's not a Russian import. But beyond that, Winter Orb is not a card that you want to see. I mean, also, I guess Tom has a few answers with the Seal Cleansings that only cost 2 mana, so he might have a response to this Winter Orb on this turn.
So he can go land, disenchant, or disenchant or seal, something of that nature.
Right. Tom does have a land, so he does have 2 mana available, which would allow a card like Disenchant to be played.
So 4 mana available for Álvaro. Passing turn, so Tom able to untap land. Dust Bowl is not as big as it could be, but still
Certainly very costly if that Winter Orb is staying in play to use a Dust Bowl.
very true. But with no huge, threats or any pressure coming from Álvaro, Tom's able to. He's now fully untapped. He can just kind of take his time, counter the important things, and kind of mitigate the damage that Winter Orb does.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if, I don't know what the rest of Álvaro's hand is, but given that he was able to resolve a Tinker and then isn't going to follow it up with much, was Winter Orb the right card to play to go get with the Tinker?
I could still see it just because it, in theory, is if he had anything or it just even draws anything, it gives him more time to get it in unhampered. But
Yeah, because I guess probably like the highest risk, highest reward would maybe not necessarily the highest reward, but Phyrexian Processor would be a card that you put into play and pay 10 life, and you could start making 10/10s. And if they don't have a disenchant, then you're going to turn the game around pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, that is probably your highest aggressive play without a doubt. Yeah, I don't know. It is strange to see the Winter Orb with no follow-up. I will agree with you on that.
Well, the Russian import has been put in play, but I guess Tom always has that costly decision of, does he want to activate the Dust Bowl?
That's very true. Well, but at this point, like, Russian import doesn't truly. Well, here he goes. Never mind. Back to fiction.
Okay. Who's the blue control deck now?
Yeah. Watch me draw some cards. Or give you a choice, I suppose. So Chromatic, City of Traders, Defense Grid, Mind Stone. That's a rough one.
Yeah, but it's no threat per se. Like nothing.
Exactly.
I guess
Agreed.
Tanglewire and Defense Grid are like similar cards in the aspect of they make Tom's counter magic a little less effective.
Oh, that's a Tanglewire. Sorry, I thought that was another Chromatic Sphere.
I don't know if that gives it more merit to. I don't think you would put both of them in the same pile. I don't know how I'd be splitting this from Tom's perspective. I guess the City of Traders are kind of awkward together.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you split this. This I think is tough. Like,
I mean, you definitely can't put, defense grid and tangle wire together, right?
I don't think so. I think defense grid is probably the card that Tom least wants to resolve. I mean, maybe Tangle Wire too. I mean, Winter Warb's already in play. Um,
Yeah, you cannot put those two together.
though, I
Or
mean, Álvaro would have the same problem though. Like, he would tap a bunch of permanents. I guess the Tangle Wire and the Chromatic Sphere are two permanents he'd always be able to tap. Because if you tap the Winter Orb, then Tom would be able to untap all his lands. So there are really awkward situations with the mud decks that, like, if you don't have enough permanents and there's Tangle Wire and Winter Orb, that you end up having to tap your Winter Orb, and then that would allow your opponent to untap all their lands. But I don't think overall. I think he would have enough artifacts / lands to tap to the Tangle Wire, so that the Winter Orb would never tap.
okay, so he's going to put them both together. So taking both. I mean, okay. See how it works out. All right.
Like the two prison cards, Tangle Wire and Defense Grid.
I think that might also signal with the mana that was available and things that can be done. I would assume there's an annul in his hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Álvaro still can be able to resolve one of the cards then, right?
Or maybe double annul. I'm just trying to think of
that's true.
Any possible reason.
I would say, because if you're Álvaro, you could lead with the Tangle Wire, and then if that gets countered, you could resolve the Defense Grid. Who stands still? So a preemptive. I don't know if counterspell is the right word, but a way to disincentivize Álvaro from casting a bunch of spells.
Yeah, I just don't know at this point if Álvaro cares about Tom necessarily drawing cards. Like, resolving a defense grid sounds great.
I agree.
I mean, you resolve the Tangle Wire now. Even if Tom draws cards, he can't utilize any mana. I mean, I suppose he could cast an instant. All right, defense grid coming down. Popping a standstill. I'm slightly surprised that Álvaro has maybe not been cycling through that chromatic sphere at all to draw a card, because he's got his colors.
It is a big opportunity cost when Winter Orb is in play, just to spend an extra mana, because you don't get to just untap it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Certainly, though, walls kind of inching themselves closer to Tom as this is getting set up.
Yeah, I mean, like, the defense grid's in play, and there is a Tangle Wire looming, which is almost assuredly going to resolve when Álvaro wants to. Like, I don't know if he would want to right now. I don't think he would, because Tom not having land drops, even after drawing 3 extra cards, and only has access to 1 mana, which on Álvaro's turn doesn't mean anything because of the defense grid.
Yeah, that's not a great position for Tom right now. He's going to go on an LD plan, it looks like. I mean, yeah, Tom only has non-basics at the moment, so I'll plan to keep working with. A good point made in Chant is, as far as the cycling through the chromatic sphere, could have been used to pay for the cost of, like, the defense grid, so it's no actual cost.
I guess in that spot, like, if you don't know the defense grid is, if you think the defense grid might get countered, then I think you want the chromatic sphere in play because of the Tangle Wire. Having an extra permanent that you can tap and untap under a Winter Orb.
There's a Masticore.
The other reason, I guess, would be a card like Tinker. Is it's probably on this board the most ideal card to tinker away. All right, Masticore coming down. So we have a threat from Álvaro. It does open up the opportunity if Tom has a card like Swords of Plowshares, because Tom can cast it on his turn, and it wouldn't have any additional cost because of the defense grid.
I mean, it can also lock out Tom out of a lot of cards because he's only got 2 in hand. However, if this Mastercore stays around and doesn't go away, disenchant.
All right, so he uses the opportunity when Álvaro doesn't have the mana to regenerate to cast a disenchant. I mean, also casting it on Álvaro's turn would allow him to. It would make the disenchant cost more, but if it were a card like Sword Splashers, you might just consider taking a few hits from the Mastercore and make Álvaro discard cards and upkeep the Mastercore.
All right, so Tanglewire going to keep Tom down for a decent amount of time.
I don't know if you need to cast a Tanglewire in this spot. I guess it prevents Tom from doing things on his own turn, like a card like Seal Cleansing or Standstill. But beyond that, like Tom passing with open mana is not very threatening because of Defense Grid.
Sure.
I guess Meddling Mage would be another card that could come down.
Meddling Mage would certainly provide a clock at this point. So Álvaro is just looking for kind of that last piece to really close it out here. He's got just about everything he would need. Now, Defense Grid is notably not one of those ones that turns off when it is tapped, correct? I cannot remember all of them in the cycle that turn themselves off when they get tapped.
Defense Grid does not turn off. Winter Orb does.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're in a mode of Álvaro's got.
Oh, I should update Álvaro's life total. I have him at 18. He's actually at 10.
These are important differences.
The Ancient Tomb's been used 4 more times than I accounted for. But
whoopsies. So Álvaro getting to tap stuff down. There's a welder.
So currently in the graveyard there is a Mastercore which was disenchanted and not swords, so it's still in the graveyard. I think there's a Tanglewire from earlier.
Yeah, I think if you can get a Tanglewire, like cycling Tanglewires, it's gonna get pretty rough.
I didn't see that many other artifacts, but I mean he also has the Chromatic Sphere that he can churn through his deck a little bit. But again, that would be at the cost of a different artifact. So,
does he maybe like EOT cycle out his Winter Orb for something?
So he definitely can. The one worry that he would have is because he'd be doing that at the end of Tom's turn, then Tom, if he had like white mana up, he'd be able to cast swords on the Goblin Welder because it wouldn't cost additional mana because of the defense grid. But,
that's true.
So one thing that I think Álvaro would need to be conscious of is if Tom has white up, then that play is a little bit risky.
That makes sense. So currently, Álvaro has to be, if we had an advantage bar, firmly in the advantage section.
Yes, I definitely like his spot. I mean, he's done a good job of keeping Tom off his what Tom wants to do, hitting land drops, countering spells. That's for sure. Tom has been able to interact on the axis of keeping the threats that are going to kill me, like which has only been Mastercore, I think, at this point. But again, like the welder provides Álvaro the option to bring that back.
So we are on Álvaro's turn right now. It looks like. Now he's going to welder.
Okay, we're exchanging the tangle wire that was in play for a fresh, shiny new tangle wire with 4 counters.
All right. Well, I mean, Tom will not be untapping. Well,
he'll have 2 mana, so he in theory could cast a disenchant during his upkeep. He also could cast an impulse.
You could cast swords on the welder.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Tapping.
Or he could cast nothing.
That is the least optimal of the plays. That would have been helpful.
Goes to discard, discards a mana leak. So Tom, under the ruthless lock of the Tinker deck, where it's not deterministic, but it's like very hopeless feeling for Tom at this point.
It's almost like you're waiting maybe for the discussion we talked about with Álvaro. Like, does Álvaro make the mistake that gives me an opening?
Yeah. I mean, drawing a Source of Plowshares, I mean, maybe Tom has one in hand and he's waiting for trying to like trap Álvaro, but this Karn.
Karn will make no mana open to like switch out against possible swords on it.
All right, so Tom will play a Flooded Strand. We'll pass the turn. Álvaro will use the welder. He's going to put... I guess if you put... The most aggressive line would be putting Asticor back into play with a Chromatic Sphere. And then you could attack for 4, 8, 10, 15. Oh, he's getting rid of the Winter Orb. Okay.
So he gets untapped now.
Mm-hmm. So how much... This could be attack. The most attack is... Oh, he's got tapped to the Tangleware. Well, he would be able to... The maximum amount... Oh, we see a Pyroclasm get discarded to the...
He did bring in the Pyroclasm, my man. I love it.
He could attack for 15 if I'm counting. Tom's at 19, I think, thanks to a fetch land or a pain land.
I think you probably just...
Well, you're going to want, I think, to put the Winter Orb back in play.
Right. Flip that out for the Winter Orb.
And you can attack for 8?
You can only attack for 8, yep.
Only.
Which is still, I mean, yes, only. This does lead to a clock next turn.
Yeah.
Next turn.
Yeah. Even if I was gonna say if one of the 4/4s gets answered, certainly if the Karn is removed with a Swords of Plowshares, that Álvaro would not have lethal.
It's true.
I guess I will note that the Goblin Welder is tapped right now, so Álvaro will not have that same play of being able to exchange the Winter Orb out at the end of turn and untap all his mana.
So 2 mana. There has to be a disenchant or a swords here, I would believe.
I don't know. I think he would have. I think he would have used it earlier on the Karn.
Yep. Okay, so there it is. All right.
So the Lockrum Álvaro was able to get things done against Tom. Cool. So let's
played by Álvaro.
Yeah, a lot of interesting sequences that come out of the Tinker deck, and that I think comes with a lot of experience that Álvaro has played these type of decks a lot, and knowing when to deploy your cards like Tanglewire, when to switch them out, when to deploy your threats, is really a lot of the skill that goes into that deck. And I would agree that Álvaro did navigate things well. Let's jump down and listen into the players. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
That match was interesting. I guess I mean like the first two games, I feel like Álvaro, you had your prison elements pretty early. I guess the first game was pretty much ideal. I guess with the Tango Wire port with a Thran Dynamo and then Winter Orb. So like I would say like Tom, you really couldn't do much that first game. That seems like pretty much perfect. The second game, Álvaro, you had a lot of disruption in the form of sphere resistance, but you had no threat that came after that. So that was, I guess, the biggest difference I think in that game too. And then it was interesting to see game three because overall you had a hand, you mulliganed to 6, and then really didn't do much for the first 3 or 4 turns. There wasn't any sphere, there wasn't any Rishadan ports or Tangle Wares. So the game was very different in that third game than it was the first and second. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Like, for either player, do you guys feel like one player is advantaged? Do you think it's pretty close? Certainly, I feel like a lot of things can go wrong for Tom. I guess I just don't know how often they line up that quickly from Alvaro's perspective. And what do you guys think?
I feel like I should be favored in this matchup because I have just different like angles of attacking. I can just land, I don't know, Fear of Resistance or one, then follow up by something else. But as you saw in the second game, I didn't have anything to follow up. But usually it's not the case. So I feel like I should be slightly favored in this matchup. Of course, not as favored as mod, regular mod. I would much be preferred to be playing mod because Black Meister 1 will be like game winning.
Okay.
So yeah, I will say that this deck should be a little bit favored against Lansing.
I feel the opposite. I think Landstill's a little favored, but I do think this matchup in particular. I mean, if any deck stumbles, it's not going to do well. But if I knew kind of going in, like Álvaro, he's played this matchup more than I have, but I think, and from playing it and just looking at it on paper, I felt like if Landstill does stumble, which did happen, right? Game 3 I mulled a 5 and missing land drops, then it just will get out of control too quick. And I think it played out exactly like that. It's a fun matchup, though. I mean, I was having fun until I couldn't do anything.
I didn't think that the Welder will survive one turn, but I was really surprised when it untapped. Like, yeah, it was like when I saw that, it was like, yeah, I got this because basically it's so much advantage from my side. I can just cycle Tangle Wires with this Winter Oven on play, and if I land a Sphere of Resistance, that's game. So
yeah, I think the game was decided the turn you cast Tangle Wire and then Tinker for Winter Orb.
Yes,
that was a crucial turn. I didn't want to have to counter Tangle Wire there, but I had to, because then at that point you had the Tangle Wire and you did the same exact thing. So it's like I was forced into that position. But yeah, it's a good match, and Álvaro played very good.
Tom, I think
I
think it was game 3 that Álvaro had cast the Factor Fiction, and it was the Tangle Wire, Defense Grid, 2 City of Traders, Mindstone. Was that game 3? So yes. I wasn't exactly sure how you split those up, but what were your thought of like kind of putting the 2 threats, I guess per se, in Tangle Wire and Sphere in the same pile?
So at that point, I'm like locked with the Winter Orb. So I couldn't let. What was the worst card? So I wanted him to take Tangle Wire because just kind of doing the same thing at that point. Like I felt pretty dead. I'm trying to think through it now though. It was like 2 City of Traders.
I think a Mindstone.
Yeah, Defense Grid was useless and pointless at that point, or at that scenario. Like I felt like I was going to start ditching my counters anyway because I'm locked into Winter Orb.
Okay.
It just felt like it didn't do anything. And then the cards I was keeping was basically just any interaction I could. So it wasn't good. My hand was not good.
Okay.
Did you? I was thinking you were going to bring the meddling mages in because I think my reasoning was, one, they could shut off a piece, but also it's a cheap threat that can just start attacking and pressuring. Tom, what was your thoughts about meddling mage coming in and your reasonings for it?
Yeah, same thing. It's just name the card that's the worst case in the moment. So like game 2 it was Tinker, and yeah, it just keeps beating down. So I had a feeling he would bring in the Pyroclasm, so you just gotta, be cautious of that.
Álvaro,
And,
were the Pyroclasms in game 2, or did they just come in for game 3?
Game 3, because I wasn't sure that. I mean, of course, he will be playing the melee mages, but I had other outs like Triskelion or Mathcore or even a Smokestack. But yeah, I didn't have anything in the game. I'm just through lands in the last part, so I didn't. Even if I had like, I don't know what Triskelion, it will be probably countered anyway. So it didn't make any difference. So.
Gotcha. So, no, it was a really fun match to watch. It's not a match I've seen played, so I was trying to figure out how we would do it and what would be done. And I thought it would be a little leaning more in Álvaro's favor, but the more that I think about it, it's just like, I think this one is almost who does the stumble first, right? Whose game plan just misses that one step, which that feels like the matchup more so than anything, but I don't know. It was awesome to watch. It's 2 decks I don't get to see a lot.
I'll add in though, this matchup. Like if you want to just play with someone on Magic Online or like on webcam or on paper, this matchup is fun when both decks are kind of doing their thing. Like some of the parts we had was definitely interesting, but like is it game 3, me stumbling on lands, like it would have been a lot different if I was hitting my land drops.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's a fun matchup to play. Like I said, it was fun. It's like a really good. It's like this amazing gameplay you want from Premodern and what it offers. Like this matchup has it. So if anyone wants to give it a shot and just play that match, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun prison deck. It's stasis, so it's fun.
Hey, leave Stasis out of this.
Yeah.
Playing against stasis is not fun. But
it's more interactive in some ways, because even if I had the Welder in play, even if I had Winter, you can still disenchant end of turn and then recover, and then or you can sword to closures the Welder anyway. Mm-hmm. So there, it's more interactive. It's more like going for it. So it is a really interesting match, to be honest.
But I mean, it was fun. You guys are both amazing players. It's always awesome watching both of you play, whether I'm against you and getting beaten each time or not. So it was awesome just to watch.
All right. We'll let the players go so we can get things set up for round number 3. But yeah, thanks guys for a great match of Magic, and congrats, Álvaro. So
thank you.
Good games, Álvaro.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care, guys.
All right, we'll take a quick break. So as we get our round 3 set up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with round number 3 of the PSS 5.